Welcome to our channel. At 1,000 subscribers, we will post a special series of videos for you. Enjoy watching.
The amber sun dipped low over the broken skyline of New Elysium, setting its shattered spires ablaze with molten gold. Once the crown jewel of Earth's interplanetary colonies, the city lay in ruin, a testament to the fierce battles of the Expanse Wars. Cracked walkways folded into chasms, hall ads fizzled on collapsed pylons, and muted sirens presided over the silent streets. Yet amid the ashes of civilization, three colossal shapes soared toward the horizon, their scales glinting like living constellation fragments against the dying light. Rain Kinley stood at the rim of what had once been Grand Plaza, now transformed into a vast crater by orbital bombardment. The wind bit through his worn field jacket, stirring the graying whiskers at his jaw and tugging loose strands of his salt and pepper hair. He shifted his gaze upward, heart pounding against his ribs. For 14 years, he had hunted across star systems, through corporate strongholds and lawless void stations, driven by one impossible hope: that his three dragons, long separated during the war's chaos, might still be alive. A tremor ran through the ground. Rain's breath caught as a shape broke free from the horizon's haze and glided down in a graceful arc. Dragonfire sputtered along her underside, illuminating her underside in smoldering orange. She was ember first of the trio to hatch from the ancient, bioengineered eggs Rain discovered on Phobos 4. She was fierce and willful, her scales a living inferno, her telepathic roar a challenge to any who dared cross her dot behind Ember. 2. More dragons streaked through the sky. Topaz, her flank shimmering like starlit sapphire, moved with languid elegance. Her eyes were calm pools of deep knowledge. And Cinder, the smallest but no less formidable, bore obsidian scales that absorbed light, making him at once shadow and substance. Their wings carved thunderous gusts that shook loose dust from distant parapets. Rain closed his eyes. 3 dragons, alive, before he could let the thunder of realization crash through his chest. They landed one by one at the crater's edge, each impact sending tremors through the earth. Ember's talons gouged ancient stone. Topaz's claw tipped toes, crumbled sandy soil. Cinder's tail whipped a miniature whirlwind of debris. All 3 lowered their massive heads and fixed their golden eyes on him. "Father." Ember's voice thrummed in his mind, a blend of smoke and warmth. Topaz's voice rippled like moonlit water. Cinder's crackled like embers cooled to coal. Though their tones were distinct, they converged in a unified chorus that spoke of longing and relief. Rain's knees buckled, and he fell to his hands and knees, tears welling in his eyes. He pressed his palms to the ground, where he had once planted bio-restorative seeds that now lay dormant, and whispered, "I thought you were gone." He rose slowly, extending trembling arms. "I never stopped searching." Ember dropped her head, brushing her snout lightly against his shoulder. Her scales radiated warmth so intense it felt like standing beside a forge. He felt her breath, a plume of gentle heat scented with ozone and ash. Topaz nudged his side, her tail curling in a gesture of inclusion. Cinder hopped closer, his small form dwarfing Rain's wiry frame, and let out an affectionate rumble that settled in the old man's chest like a resurgent heartbeat. Around them, the ruins seemed to hold their breath. The hololiths flickered to life at the edges of the crater, broadcasting warning messages about hostile wildlife contamination. But nobody had sounded alarms at the sight of dragons before. Not until now. Rain circled his dragons, touching each scale with reverent fingers. Embers were scorched and etched with battle scars. One horn was chipped where a corporate hunter's railgun had struck. Topaz's wings bore faint, intricate glyphs, ancient markings Rain had only seen in the lost temples of Dragon's Reach. Cinder's left eye was clouded, a souvenir from a violent skirmish near Vega Station. He spoke aloud to them, even though They heard him telepathically. I couldn't save you back then. But I learned, I adapted, and I vowed that no matter what, I would bring you home. The dragons exchanged quick glances, their mind voices overlapping in gentle reassurance. Ember, you did, Father. Topaz, we knew you'd find us. Cinder, lead the way. He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Let's go home, he said. Let's go home. That night, they camped in the crater's basin. Rain had salvaged a modular shelter, an inflatable geotin patched over with emergency thermal blankets. He rigged it against the wind, and the dragons clustered around, like guardian sentinels. Ember half-coiled her vast body, shielding the tent. Topaz curled into a graceful spiral. Cinder perched on Ember's tail, vigilant dot inside the tent. Rain prepared nutrient gels enriched with synthesized proteins, amino complexes, and a dash of the special formula he developed only for dragons, an amino acid blend that catalyzed scale regeneration. He offered each dragon a cluster of transparent pods. Ember devoured hers with a satisfied growl. Topaz nibbled delicately. Cinder scooped his up in a single dexterous swipe dot as they ate. Rain unpacked his portable hollow projector and activated it. Ghostly blue waves of light shimmered upward, forming a three-dimensional map of the sector. He traced his finger along the trails he had blazed over the past decade. Derelict star freighters, hidden ore mines, black market labs, pulverized battlefields where the dragons had been scattered. I measured every thermal plume, every scale-shaped. Energy signature, he said softly. I learned to speak your language, to interpret your bio-quantum frequency, and I finally cracked the code that led me here. He tapped a waypoint etched in crimson, the coordinates of New Elysium's crater. This is where you testified, telepathically sending me that message I almost refused to believe. Ember's eyes narrowed, recalling the night in orbit when she had whispered through quantum entanglement. Rain had been drifting in a rescue pod, half dead, and he heard her call, Father, find us. It had galvanized him, changed the course of his life. They fell into reflective silence, the hum of the hollow projector mixing with Ember's slow breathing and Topaz's low drone of contentment. Cinder and Rain exchanged a private mental joke. Do you remember when he tried to ride you? That maybe old man chuckled, despite the lingering ache in his chest. Outside, the crater lay silent to silent. Rain's enhanced sensors suddenly flared in alarm. A small cam drone soared above the rim, its optical systems trained on the trio. The device's cold, unblinking eye captured Ember's flame-patterned scales, Topaz's sapphire hues, Cinder's midnight hide. And, unmistakably, the battered human father crouched beside them. Rain froze, freezing his hand mid-wave to his. Children. Ember's head snapped up, nostrils flaring as she sensed the intrusion. Topaz slithered closer, scanning the perimeter with flickering telepathic tendrils. Cinder buzzed his wings, ready to launch skyward. They found us. Rain whispered. His mind raced. The Coalition's Enforcement Division, the corporate bio-sentinels, the relic hunters of the Outer Rim. None had the authorization or the moral scruples to hunt dragons for sport. But the government? They would seize the dragons as living weapons, subjects for experimentation, or leverage in interstellar negotiations. Ember's telepathic response was a low, simmering rumble. They will not harm us. Topaz's voice brought a calm certainty. We are strong. Cinder's chirp bristled with excitement. Let them come. Rain rose, slipping his hand into his jacket pocket to feel the reassuring shape of his Arcaster. Stay. Close, he murmured. We may have to move fast. He keyed a frequency on his comm unit. Mara, are you online? He paused, waiting for the signal to hop to life. Sanctuary station status? No reply. Mara, the code name for his oldest ally, had helped him decipher draconic telemetry. She ran a hidden network of safe houses, but if she were offline now, it could mean the coalition had shut her down, or worse. Ember stretched one colossal wing, the man-made stitches along its leading edge shifting in the firelight. She tilted her head and sent him a series of images. Subterranean catacombs beneath the city. Secret tunnels leading north toward the Forgotten Moons Valley. A backdoor escape route, forgotten by post-war scrappers. Rain exhaled, adrenaline sharpening his senses. "All right," he said aloud, though the dragons heard it telepathically too. "We stick to the shadows. We move at dawn." He pulled off his gloves, fingers trembling as he slid them into his pocket. "And we trust each other." As the first pale fingers of dawn crept over the crater rim, Rain nestled between Ember's warm, scaled foreleg and Topaz's gentle curl. Cinder lowered his head onto Rain's shoulder, a final comfort against the coming storm. The world around them may have fallen to ruin and might soon rain bullets and drones upon them, but here, in this crater, a fractured family was whole again. And together, they would face whatever came next. The first light of dawn spilled over New Elysium's broken skyline in long, pale shafts illuminating the crater's rim with a cold, unforgiving glow. Rain Kinley lay beneath Ember's massive foreleg, bundled in a thermal blanket, listening to the low rumble of his dragon's breathing. The world beyond their circle seemed impossibly vast and imminently hostile. He rose silently, careful not to disturb the gentle rise and fall of Topaz's side or rouse Cinder from his perch on Ember's tail. Slipping on his vibra boots and reaching for his comm unit, he crept to the crater's lip. Above him, the sky rippled with the contrails of early patrol drones. On the rim, a dozen armored Enforcement Division agents were already positioning reconnaissance beacons, tagging thermal hotspots, and sweeping for escape routes. Commander Althea Voss stood at their center, her dark exosuit reflecting the pallid light. She tapped a holopad strapped to her forearm, issuing crisp orders. Sweep the southern gullies, block any exit corridors. Deploy the EmberNet launchers at points Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. Keep their targets alive for capture. Number. Lethal measures unless explicitly authorized. Behind her, technician squads unpacked grapnel cannons and electromagnetic pulse disruptors, laying the groundwork for a surgical strike. 2 hover tanks hissed alive, their stabilizer fields glowing emerald as they rolled into position. Rain watched, pulse quickening. He keyed his comm, a low-frequency channel linking him only to the dragons. "They know we're here." His mind buzzed with Ember. "Ready yourselves." Topaz's calm voice echoed. "We can mask our thermal signature for a few minutes more, but not long." Cinder's excitement crackled. "Let them come. We'll send them running." Rain slid a hand into his jacket pocket, closing on the slender grip of his arc caster. It hummed softly, a quantum stun weapon that could temporarily overload neural synapses. He fitted a shock cell cartridge and tested the safety catch. Deep in the crater basin, Ember flexed her wings. Her telepathic reach expanded, probing the agents' minds with gentle tendrils. She found fear, and beneath it, confusion. They had been ordered to capture, not kill, but standing before 3 dragons and a lone human. That distinction felt academic. One of the agents glanced down at the crater floor and saw a flicker of movement, a trailing plume of dragon silk. Thread, abandoned from a molting thermal spike. He called, raising his rifle. A containment net launcher swiveled into place on a tripod. Rain retreated to a shallow overhang, fists clenched. He knew this landscape, secret caves and hidden tunnels winding beneath the city, vestiges of ancient mining operations that had predated the war. If he could reach the southern breach, he could lead the dragons through the underlevels and vanish before the Enforcement Division could mount orbital support. He tapped Ember's mind. "Are you ready?" "I am," she replied, her voice like the crackle of embers. But you must move quickly. He returned the signal. At my mark, fall back toward the tunnel entrance. Don't engage until I give the word dot. At his overhead signal, a single flare fired from his arc-caster ember reared her head and let out a deafening roar that shook loose rubble from the crater rim. The agent stiffened, rifles raised. 2 of the net launchers locked onto Ember's flank. Rain shouted, "Go!" Ember beat her wings with titanic force, stirring a gale that tore at the agent's suits. The first net spiraled upward. Ember caught it in midair with a swipe of her claw, shredding the mesh as if it were paper. Topaz and Cinder lunged from concealment, their combined heat and smoke forcing the agents to cover their visors. Rain darted down the slope, the cave entrance looming ahead. Net canisters bounced and spilled soporific gas at his heels. He jammed a finger into the pneumatic lock and twisted. With a hiss, the bulkhead swung inward. He threw a hand back to Ember. "Now!" Ember charged, Topaz swooping beside her, wings nearly grazing the rock ceiling. Cinder blasted a volley of ember fire that ignited the fuel cells in a disabled hover tank, creating a barrier of flame across the crater floor. 3 agents sprinted after them, rifles raised. One fired an electromagnetic pulse round that shattered Ember's shield weave. She roared in pain, scales smoking where the pulse had struck. Topaz turned her wing into a barrier, absorbing the residual shock. Rain scrambled into the tunnel, hand pressed flat against the cold metal wall. "Through here, quick!" They disappeared into the darkness, and the bulkhead slammed shut behind them. Inside lay a labyrinth of maintenance corridors, illuminated only by emergency pathlights sputtering in the stale gloom. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes. Old service bots lay abandoned in rusted alcoves. The echo of their footsteps multiplied into 1,000 shifting shadows. Ember's massive head blocked the entrance. "We're safe. For now," she murmured. Rain exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. "We need to move." He activated his wrist hollow projector, overlaying the ancient schematic he had downloaded years before. Ahead lay a service shaft 40 meters long, ending in a collapse zone. Beyond that, a circuitous route through the city's underbelly, a hidden tunnel Mara had retrofitted for emergencies. Topaz's telepathy reached him, calm and measured. "This place is toxic." She had detected chemical tracers, industrial solvents, lingering radiation pockets, the stench of bio-waste. "We must hurry." Cinder's fiery breath lit the corridor in flickers of dancing orange light. The floor sluiced with a shallow film of oily sludge. Rain held his breath as they passed a cluster of tumbling maintenance hoppers that threatened to activate and roll back and crush them. Ember carefully raised a foreleg, creating a bridge for Rain to cross. Rain's mind buzzed with fragments of memories. The night he and Mara first charted these tunnels, crawling through waist-deep water to evade corporate mercenaries. The time he lost a close friend to a sudden cave-in. The countless hours spent decoding the dragon's telepathic coordinates in the dead of night. All that work led to this moment refuge or ruin. They reached the collapsed shaft. A pile of twisted girders and broken concrete blocked the path. Ember stretched a clawed foreleg through the rubble and, with a spine-shuddering effort, dislodged the blockage. Topaz roared encouragement, her sapphire scales glowing. Loose rocks showered down, but the path cleared. Rain scrambled forward, hugging Ember's flank. "Next junction to the north," he whispered. He punched a button on his comm, switching to a secure secondary channel. "Mara, do you copy?" "We're through the crater entrance, heading north under Sector Delta. ET, a 1 hour, if the tunnels." "Hold." Silence answered him. He frowned. Mara customarily responded within seconds, her comm network always online until the Enforcement Division found her main node. If they'd taken out her uplink, this entire rescue network was compromised. Embers. Telepathy brushed his mind. Not all channels are cut. We're not alone. He blinked. What do you mean? Listen. From deep within the tunnel system came a low, resonant hum like distant machinery powering up. Then the soft rasp of servos sliding along rails. Rain armed his arccaster and edged forward. Through the gloom, he made out glimmering shapes. Tall, slender exosuits, their optics glowing cobalt blue. They were not coalition armor, but something older black market prototypes, infused with illicit stealth tech. Topaz's telepathy sharpened. Scavenger mercs. They've been coming this way seeking war relics. Cinder spat a forensic flare of ember fire, illuminating their outlines. The mercenaries froze, rifles lowering as they took in the sight of Ember, Topaz, and Cinder. Their leader, a woman with a silver skull mask, stepped forward, hand raised. "Easy," she called. "I'm not here to fight." "Then why intercept?" "U.S.?" Rain demanded. She shrugged. "Business. The Coalition pays good credits for dragon carcasses. Mercs like me keep half, but the rest goes straight to the black market. I figured you'd funded one of their bounties. You sprint through. Here enough times, figured I'd catch up." Rain's blood froze. "You're profit-driven scum." She shook her head. "Look, kid, your dragons could fetch more than a battalion's payroll. But I'm offering you a deal. Safe passage through Sector Theta. I know the traps the Coalition laid, the seismic charges. One wrong turn, and you and your pets go kaboom. My path is clean right through the old Camarays." Ember snorted, heat washing over the corridor. "Why help us?" The mercenary woman shrugged. "I'm an opportunist, not a monster. If you paid me up front, fine, I move you out. If not, I turn you in and claim the reward." Rain glared. "I don't have credits. Everything I have is in these tunnels." She raised an eyebrow. "What do you have?" He glanced at Ember, then back at her. In that moment, he decided. "My knowledge." Her skull mask tilted. "Go on. I mapped these tunnels," he said. "Deactivated mines, rerouted power drains, smuggled supplies in and out for years. If you guide us through Sector Theta, I'll lead you to ravine 9 untold caches of pre-war tech. Surgical drones, nanopace kits, quantum disruptors. Enough to keep you rich for a decade." Her optics flared. Bold. "I'm not bluffing," Rain said. "Help me." "Help? Yourselves avoid the enforcement division, and we both walk away with everything we need." The mercenary leader studied him in silence. Ember, Topaz, and Cinder shifted behind him, scales reflecting the flickering pathlights. Finally, she shrugged and lowered her rifle. "Deal, but any trickery, and I won't hesitate." Rain nodded, relief flooding him. He glanced back at the dragons. "Trust me," he sent. Ember's acceptance came as a soft ember rumble. "For now." The entrance to the Forgotten Moons lay buried beneath a rusted service, hatch 40 meters, below New Elysium's shattered boulevard of glass towers. Rain, Kinley, Ember, Topaz, Cinder, and their unlikely allies, the scavenger mercs, slipped through the narrow access tunnel into a world untouched by the Expanse Wars. Approve the narrow access Tunce Wars. Approve the narrow access tunnel into a world untouched by the Expanse Wars. Apuri. Soft phosphorescence pulsed along the cavern walls, tracing veins of bioluminescent moss and fungal reefs in ever-shifting hues of violet and jade. The air was warm and humid, thick with the sweet, earthy scent of living rock. Above them arched the cavern's vaulted ceiling hundreds of meters overhead, its stalactites dripping crystalline condensate into shadowed pools that shimmered like liquid starlight. Ember paused at the threshold, her massive silhouette backlit by the cavern's gentle glow. Scales that bore scorched scars from Nova Kepler drift-lash battles now radiated a deep ember-red warmth that mingled with the cave's ethereal light. She lowered her head, nostrils flaring as she drank in the sanctuary scent. Topaz coiled gracefully beside her, eyes reflecting every glimmer of the subterranean galaxy above. Cinder fluttered his wings, sending ripples of light dancing across the damp stone floor. Rain exhaled in wonder. "Welcome home," he whispered, guiding his arccaster's beam over an array of makeshift dwellings built into fissures and ledges. Not a single external structure rose above the original rock face. Every hut and lab was hammered, welded, and grown directly from the stone itself. Glowing lanterns carved from insulinian crystal hung from braided vines. Hanging gardens of edible fungus swayed gently in the cavern's faint breeze. The mercenary leader's skull mask paused beside him. Her cobalt optics, so cold in the tunnels above, softened with awe. "You said this place existed," she admitted. "But I didn't believe it could be so alive." Before Rain could reply, a chorus of voices drifted on the humid air. Figures emerged from behind sculpted pillars, tall, lean humans in patched uniforms. Former soldiers with haunted eyes turned farmers. Rogue exobiologists whose hands still trembled at memories of battlefield vivisections. Children with curious gazes, unaccustomed to the sight of dragons. "Mara!" Rain called. A swift footstep echoed across the stone as a woman with shock-white hair and goggles perched on her forehead hurried forward. "You made it!" Mara's lips trembled into a relieved smile. She embraced Rain fiercely. "We thought the enforcement division had you pinned beneath the crater. I lost your signal for 5 standard hours, an eternity." She stepped back and surveyed Ember, Topaz, and Cinder. "And you brought the whole family." Ember's telepathy surged with gentle warmth. "It's been too long, mother of my mind." Mara bowed her head respectfully. "Your dragons are welcome here. They'll be safe." She turned to Skullmask's mercs. "And that goes for you so long as you follow our rules." Skullmask tapped the side of her helmet. "Fair enough." Rain guided the group along a winding path, past terraces of bioluminescent berry vines and through archways carved with ancient glyphs, proof that some prior civilization had once sought refuge here too. Streams of mineral-rich water trickled along channels in the floor, nourishing mats of moss and algae that glittered like emerald dust. Faint hums of geothermal vents echoed in the distance. At the cavern's heart stood a wide circular pool, fed by a column of dripping water from the ceiling. Its surface was perfectly still, reflecting an uncanny mirror of the domed chamber above. Along the pool's rim, engineers in patched lab coats calibrated a vine-spliced harmonics emitter, Mara's invention, designed to cloak the dragon's thermal and electromagnetic signatures by subtly shifting the ambient frequencies. "Here," Mara said, ushering them forward. She flipped a switch, and the emitter hummed to life. A gentle ripple of iridescent energy flickered across Ember's scales, then over Topaz and Cinder. The mercenary technicians consulted their scanners. "No heat spike, no M footprint," one reported. "They're invisible." Ember exhaled through her nostrils in contentment. "We are safe, at least for now." Rain's relief was tempered by the memory of Commander Voss's promise. "We will find you." He watched the mercenaries unpack stolen crates of salvaged medkits, rebreathers, and quantum disruptors, priceless supplies that would keep Sanctuary hidden. But even here, peace felt fragile. As twilight settled into a greenish hue, the community gathered for the nightly council. A semicircular amphitheater had been carved into the rock, with benches hewn from the cavern's natural stone. Mara stood at the center, flanked by Rain and Skullmask. Villagers' eyes bright with hope and revenge leaned forward to listen. "We welcome you," Mara began, voice echoing through the chamber. "Your dragons are our shield. They remind us what we fight for." She scanned the crowd. "But this sanctuary is only as strong as its secrets. We must not let the coalition or corporate hunters breach our walls." A murmur ran through the assembly. A grizzled ex-soldier raised his hand. "Commander Vos sent tracers. She be here within days. We need a plan." Skull Mask flicked her wrist. "We've mapped every possible ingress. We've laid mines in the choke points. Our stealth suits can infiltrate their command centers and fry their comms." Rain held up a hand. "Violence begets violence. Our goal is to protect the dragons and this community. If we retaliate too harshly, we risk turning Sanctuary into a target." Topaz's telepathy rippled reassurance. Diplomacy can serve as armor too. The crowd settled, but unease lingered like a distant storm. Rain looked to Ember. "Your instincts?" "We must remain vigilant." Ember's response was calm but unwavering. "Trust those who earn your trust. But question all signals." As the council dispersed, Mara led Rain, Ember, Topaz, and Cinder to a secluded alcove behind the amphitheater. There, she revealed a holomap of New Elysium's surface. Red dots marked Coalition patrol routes. Blue dots indicated corporate watchtowers. A green halo marked Sanctuary's geofence. "This cavern is shielded," Mara explained. "But they're experimenting with quantum surveying. If they tweak their arrays, they could bypass our harmonics filter. We have 1 week, maybe less, before they zero in." Rain's chest tightened. "Then we prepare. We fortify every choke point, train the villagers, and reinforce your cloaking grid." Mara nodded. "Agreed, but there's something else." She tapped a distant part of the holomap. "We've detected an unauthorized signal source near the northern rim. Intermittent bursts of microtransmissions, almost imperceptible, but definitely there." Cinder bristled. "Spy." Rain frowned. "Someone's already inside our walls." That night, under a canopy of glowing fungi, the dragons rested while Rain and Skullmask patrolled the upper terraces. Every shadow seemed alive. Every breeze carried whispering echoes. Skullmask fingered the grip of her plasma sidearm. "You ever trust a mercenary?" she asked. Rain shook his head. "Trust is earned." They reached the northern rim, a jagged fissure where the cave wall met a sea of glittering stalagmites. A rustle of cloth against stone. A slender figure slipped from behind a boulder, one hand to her mouth as if to muffle a cough. "Stop," Skullmask barked, raising her weapon. The stranger froze, then turned. A hooded woman in a reflective cloak stood before them, face obscured. She clutched a microtransceiver that blinked with a single red diode. Rain stepped forward, voice low. "Who are you?" The woman's voice trembled. I'm a volunteer. I came through the tunnels weeks ago, bringing spare parts for the emitter. I wanted to help. Then why this?" Skullmask snapped, pointing at the beacon. She swallowed. "I didn't know. I just wanted to see if it worked. I was curious." Rain's instincts warred with his hope. "Trust those who earn your trust." He looked into the woman's eyes rimmed with fatigue and guilt. "What did you transmit, and to whom?" Silence. Then, in a rush, she spoke. "I transmitted our location coordinates to a contact on the surface. I thought it would bring more supplies, food, medkits. I didn't know they were UEC agents. They paid me to send a beacon of hope. Just a phrase I didn't understand until it was too late." A cold quiet fell. Ember's mind reached out, sensing the woman's fear. Topaz's telepathy wove threads of calm. Cinder's flame sense glowed faintly against her trembling form. Rain inhaled. "You risked everything with good intentions." He turned to Skullmask. "We hold her here, question her further, and then decide." Skullmask lowered her weapon, but her jaw remained tense. "If she betrayed us, let's hear her." "Out," Rain said, as the hooded volunteers stood alone beneath the living cavern. The dragons gathered close, silent sentinels under the bioluminescent sky. In the heart of Sanctuary, the line between friend and foe blurred. And beyond these glowing walls, the Enforcement Division's net was tightening, waiting for the moment to strike. But within these luminous shadows, hope still burned bright, flickering, fragile, and fiercely alive. Distant rumbles shook the vaulted expanse of the Forgotten Moons, as dawn's pale light filtered through fissures in the cavern ceiling. Rain Kinley stood atop a carved stone dais, the holographic map of New Elysium's surface still flickering. At his side, but his full attention was on the softly rumbling dragons gathered around him. Ember flexed her wings, scales gleaming ember red. Topaz's serene gaze swept across the gathered villagers, and Cinder perched atop a crystalline outcrop, every muscle coiled in feline readiness. "All right," Rain whispered, addressing both dragons and sanctuary defenders alike. "Voss's Enforcement Division won't strike until they know where we are, and they'll come hard. We have one chance to repel them before they decide to level the entire cavern." He tapped the map, highlighting 3 choke points: the Southern Gate, the Silver Ribbon Tunnel, and the Crystal Atrium. "We hold here, here, and here. Ember, you and Topaz take the Southern Gate. Cinder, you'll support the defenders at the Atrium. Mara, Skullmask, position your mercs along the Ribbon Tunnel. Everyone else stay behind the wards." A murmur ran through the defenders. Holographic runes flickered around the cavern's rim-protective glyphs Mara had reactivated. Whisper thin. Cables hummed, feeding the harmonics emitter in the central pool. But at any moment, Voss could direct orbital quantum mappers to punch straight through. From the echoing heights above, a sudden tremor heralded the arrival of hover tanks. The Enforcement Division's blue and white armor, emblazoned with the UEC crest, crawled into view. 20 hover tanks, clusters of grapnel guns, and battalions of exosuited agents. Commander Althea Voss surveyed the scene through a scoped rifle. Lips pressed into a thin line. Rain's voice rang out. "Hold fast!" Southern Gate Ember and Topaz Ember leapt from the dais and thundered down the ramp, Topaz gliding beside her. Below, a squad of agents bristled with containment net launchers and plasma rifles. The first volley of nets lanced toward Ember, but she swatted them aside as if flicking cobwebs, the soporific capsules shattering into nothing. A plasma bolt hissed through the air. Ember met it with a gout of violet-tinged flame, creating a barrier of superheated air that singed the cavern's walls. Topaz followed with a pillar of sapphire smoke that obscured the agent's targeting. Sensors. Disoriented, they scattered, scrambling for cover as Ember's claws gouged the tunnel floor and Topaz's tail swept debris into their ranks. Rain, watching from the command dais via holofeed, exhaled. Could keep them bottled up. Silver Ribbon Tunnel Mara and Skull Mask farther east. Mara and Skull Mask led 20 mercenaries through the narrow ribbon tunnel. The walls here narrowed to only 3 meters apart, forcing the Enforcement Division's tanks to funnel into a tight choke. As the first tank approached, the mercs activated Tesla coils rigged to the wall's arcs of electric blue lightning crackled, disabling the tank's hover stabilizers. Skull Mask unleashed a minefield from her wrist launcher. The concussive blast hammered the agent's shields, sending them reeling. Mara used a hacked comm beacon to jam the tank's incoming orders. Each tank became a drifting behemoth, vulnerable and confused. The mercs picked them off with precision railgun. Fire, carving a deadly gauntlet. Tunnel secured. Skull Mask snarled, kicking aside a stunned agent's helmet. "They'll think twice before sending more through here." Crystal Atrium Cinder's gambit at the easternmost choke point. The Crystal Atrium opened into a vast chamber of towering stalagmites that refracted the cavern's bioluminescent light. Cinder perched atop the highest spike, eyeing the columns of agents advancing under the cover of a heavy lift drone. As the drone buzzed overhead, Cinder inhaled deeply, drawing in a charge of phosphorescent embers. Then he released a brilliant cascade of ember fire that rained down like luminescent shrapnel, igniting the drone's rotors. It spiraled out of control, careening into the ranks below. The impact cracked a stalagmite, sending shards of crystal crashing through the enemy line. Agents scrambled, but Cinder dove into the fray, claws extended, letting loose bursts of flame that corralled them into the other two choke points. From the command dais, Rain saw the Enforcement Division's formation disintegrate. Many agents fell back, regrouping around Commander Voss as she activated a resonant disruptor and experimental device meant to override Mara's harmonics cloak. The glyphs around the cavern flickered and dimmed. "They're breaking the emitter!" Mara shouted, overcome. "If it fails, the dragons will glow like beacons." Rain's heart pounded. "We can't let that happen." Ember Topaz focused on her position. Cinder draw her fire. Showdown with Commander Voss. Commander Voss advanced alone, boots ringing on stone as she moved directly toward the central pool. She carried a compact device crackling with purple energy. Two exosuited bodyguards flanked her, weapons at the ready. Ember and Topaz descended in unison, their shadows blotting out the dim light. Ember's roar shook the glyphs loose. Topaz's aura of sapphire flame formed a living wall. Voss leveled her disruptor, electricity arcing toward the emitter. When Cinder dove between them, wings beating at supersonic speed to blur the agent's sensors. The bodyguards opened fire, bolts of compressed plasma sizzling against Cinder's scales. He twisted emitter, spraying ember fire that sent them sprawling. Voss snarled and adjusted her aim. "Rain Kinley," she called. "Surrender, and your dragons will be spared further harm." Rain stepped forward, raising his voice. "Leave them out of your politics, Voss. They're not weapons." She sneered. "Seated governments don't get to choose. I will do my duty." She gripped the trigger. A wave of purple energy washed across the glyphs, dimming them one by one. But before the final ward could fail, Ember lunged, talons extended. With a thunderous crack, she swatted the disruptor from Voss's hand. It skittered across the stone floor and exploded in a shower of sparks. Voss's device, and her chance at disabling the cloak, destroyed. The glyphs flared back to full brightness. The harmonics emitter roared to life, bathing the dragons in its protective field. Sensors across the cavern registered 0 thermal or M signatures. Voss looked around, disbelieving. The hover tanks outside stilled, bodies suspended in midair as their stabilizers failed. The agents in the cavity froze, unable to target what could no longer be seen. Rain closed the distance. "It's over," he said, voice calm but resolute. "There's nothing left to fight." Voss spat at the ground. She lifted her chin with stubborn pride. "You've only bought time. The Coalition will send more faster, better equipment. The dragons will fall eventually." Topaz's voice echoed in Rain's mind. "Then we will fight again together." Ember added, "We are bound to this land and to you. We will never yield." Rain turned to Voss. "If you truly believe in your cause, then you know the cost of war. Here, we protect life, every life. Go back to your superiors. Tell them this place is sacrosanct. They can't bomb their own people." Commander Voss's shoulders sagged. For the first time, doubt cracked the mask of duty. She holstered her sidearm. I will report the situation, Dr. Kinley. But know this, if the Coalition orders me back, I must comply." Rain inclined his head. "I understand. But until then, leave us in peace." With a curt nod, Commander Voss tapped her come. Her bodyguards backed away. A moment later, the hover tanks outside sighed and dropped to the cavern floor. Agents rose, removing their helmets to reveal weary faces, some young enough to be mere children when the Expanse Wars began. They exchanged uncertain glances before falling into formation behind their commander. Silence settled over the forgotten moons. The humming of the emitter, the crackle of cooling plasma, and the distant drip of crystalline condensate formed a gentle chorus of victory and relief. Aftermath. And farewell that evening. As phosphorescent lanterns swung overhead, Rain, Mara, Ember, Topaz, and Cinder stood together at the pool's edge. Skullmask and her mercs had loaded their gear onto patched hoverlifts, credits earned, contracts fulfilled. The villagers gathered, faces shining with gratitude. Mara placed a hand on Rain's shoulder. "You've given us hope, and the dragon's power saved us all." Ember lowered her head so Rain could stroke her crown ridge. "You are my anchor," she telepathically intoned. Topaz coiled around Rain's legs protectively, and Cinder rumbled a soft, contented song. Before Skullmask could depart, Rain called her over. "Thank you for your help and for sparing us." He held out a small data crystal. "This contains the locations of every supply cache I promised. You'll find enough pre-war tech to last you crew years." She took it, eyes narrowing. "In surprise and respect, you're a man of your word, Kinley. Maybe there's hope for humanity yet." With a salute, she climbed into her hoverlift and vanished into the tunnels. Rain turned back to his dragons. "The world above may never understand you," he whispered. "But here, you saved lives, and you reminded us all why we fight to protect each other." He looked toward the crystalline pool, where the harmonics emitter glowed softly. "Sanctuary stands." Ember spread her wings in a wide protective arc. Topaz's sapphire gleam pulsed like a heartbeat. Cinder's flickering embers drifted upward, casting dancing shadows on the cavern walls. And though the future remained uncertain in the heart of the forgotten moons, a fractured world had found a fragile peace bound by dragonfire, human perseverance, and the unbreakable bonds of family.